Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
After coming out of Caesar's palace, Su Hee took a deep breath of the cool air, letting it clear her mind. She couldn't help but cast an angry glance at Tang Yi and reproach him. You know my relationship with Ache now, so why do you still want to do this? I kicked you so many times, and you still didn't respond. You did this on purpose, didn't you? 2. Tang Yi felt wronged. When did you kick me? Why didn't I know? 2. Hee's expression froze on her face. If she hadn't kicked Tang Yi, then it was Ache, too. It was obvious that Tang Yi had also thought of this possibility. He couldn't help but stare at her with a strange expression. He was a little tired of being stared at. Don't look at me like that. It's too late. I have to go home. 2. I'll escort you, too. No need. He quickly refused. What a joke. If this big mouth knew that she was staying in Ache's villa, it would be a scandal. 2. Su Hee insisted on going back on her own. Tang Yi couldn't force her. He personally hailed a taxi for her and watched her leave. 2. Young Master Tang, aren't you afraid that young Master Qi will seek revenge on you for what you've done tonight? The assistant who had been following them from afar walked up with a worried look on his face. 2. Of course I'm afraid, too. Then why are you still here? 2. As long as I'm happy, why would I bother so much? As he spoke, he stuffed the 2 bottles of presidential love into the assistant's arms without any explanation. Take these, they're yours now. 2. After returning to the villa, Su Hee took off her shoes and quietly went to the room on the 2nd floor, leaving the lights off. As soon as she pushed open the door, she immediately fell against a broad chest. 2. Hee let out a cry of shock before another pair of lips pressed against her own in the darkness. 2. The familiar smell brought with it the mellow aroma of wine. He was instantly stunned. 2. In the darkness, Che cursed under his breath. Damn it, he still couldn't stop this crazy longing for her. He wished that he could keep her by his side at all times. 2. He felt that he had gone insane, crazy for Su Hee. 2. Ache, the body is sometimes more honest than the mind. It's love to the extreme. How could she not yearn for his touch, too? That night, Su Hee couldn't fall asleep, no matter how hard she tried. She pulled open the curtains and let the soft moonlight in. Resting her head on one hand, she watched the sleeping man, mesmerized. She could watch him forever without getting tired. She was sure of it. 2. Author's note. Chanqian's jade-like fingers were reluctant to part as she described the man in loving detail. 2. Some of the content had been removed during the revisions. She would make up for it in the future. Sorry. In his deep sleep, Ache seemed to have something on his mind. His sharp eyebrows were tightly knitted together. Su Hee lightly kissed him, feeling that his heart was in unbearable pain. 2. She and Ache were already in a tight knot. Putting aside all the craziness and other people aside, it still didn't scratch the surface of the difficulties between them. 2. Although the wound was scabbed, once it was torn open, it would still bleed. No one would be able to bear the consequences. 2. Ache, it wasn't that she didn't love him, but she mustn't. Yet she was so attached to him. 2. Suddenly, a strong arm wrapped around her waist, forcefully pulling her into his embrace. Che's lazy voice murmured in her ear, "What are you thinking about again, 2? He immediately burst into laughter. Before she could answer, he touched her cheek, now looking concerned. Are you feeling unwell somewhere? Do you want to go to the hospital? 2. He was so gentle and tender. Su Hee felt like her heart was melting. Ache, why do you always make people unable to leave you? 2. I'm a doctor myself. There's no need for me to go to the hospital. 2. That's right. You're a doctor now. Che's eyes darkened. He gently held her hand and probed further. Back then, you didn't even dare to enter the laboratory. Now, you've actually become a surgeon. 2. Su Hee's heart tightened. She lowered her head and spoke quietly. Perhaps my environment has changed me. Che, how could she not understand that you were going around investigating the things that had happened in the past 5 years? 2. Che's voice was slightly cold when he did not get the answer he wanted. Did the environment change you? Or did he change you? His tone could not help but be sour. 2. He pulled out of his embrace and walked barefoot to the wrought-tan chair on the balcony. She sat, hugging her knees with both hands and lowering her head. Point two. In the end, he still cared about her betrayal. Perhaps there was no man who wouldn't care, but she didn't want to explain. At this point, there was no way to change things. Even if they deliberately didn't mention it, nothing could hide the huge gap between them. They were so close to each other, but might soon be separated forever. Point two. Chiche's lips curled into a cold smile as he stood behind he. The sky slowly turned white as a fish's belly. A ray of dawn cast a faint halo around her body, so weak that it seemed like it would disappear at any moment. Point two. The pain that had been his constant torment for the past 5 years was slowly filling his heart. I'm still waiting for your explanation. That was his final demand. Point two. The sound of footsteps was drowned out by the thick carpet. He heard the crisp sound of the door closing and hurriedly turned her head, thinking that he had left, but finding him stood behind her. At this moment, she almost couldn't control himself as she threw himself into his arms and cried loudly. Point two. It's still too early. Sleep a little longer. Chiche bent down and carried her back to the bed without any explanation before turning around. Point two. Ache! Su He hurriedly grabbed Chiche's hand. Seeing his cold eyes, however, her joy faded instantly. The words she had almost blurted out, asking him to stay, were changed to "I'll move out tomorrow, too. Don't even think about it." He flung her hand away heavily. Chiche's thin lips were pursed into a line. He glanced at her coldly and turned away to close the door. Point two. The next morning, Su He was running late. Du-ju drove up to the main entrance, waiting there to block her path. Point two. Miss Su, I will be taking you to the hospital today. Two. Thank you. Ififin would definitely scold her for being late. She hurried to get in, relieved at her luck. She was immediately face to face with Chiche, who was lounging in the back seat, his deep eyes staring at her intently. Point two. Suhi was shocked. She didn't expect Che to be in the car. Du-ju's words were clearly misleading her. Point two. The first watch is on the door. There will be another one later. The hospital and the Zifeng building aren't on the same road, she reminded them softly. Suddenly, she couldn't figure out Ache's thoughts. Point two. A cold smile hung on the man's lips. Last night was like a wet dream. This morning, he was still the high and mighty CEO Chi, cold and emotionless. Point two. He still hated her. Suhi's chest was getting more and more painful. She'd been in such a hurry that she'd forgotten to take her medicine that morning. Point two. Du-ju, who was driving, quickly explained. It's okay. The CEO is also going to the hospital today. After Du-ju finished speaking, the car suddenly fell silent. He didn't dare to look at Chi-che. She could only turn his head and look at the scenery outside the window. The car soon arrived at the city center. Not long after, it actually stopped at the Pearl on the Water. She had been here before, and it had left a very deep impression. Point two. Miss Su, please wait a moment. The president needs to come here on the way to do something. Du-ju had glanced at Chi-che, seeing that he was expressionless. He had given Su He a hurried explanation. Point two. Chi-che rolled down the car window and calmly looked out. Su He followed suit and was almost dumbstruck. Point two. At that moment, the entrance of the Pearl on the Water was surrounded by a group of armed police. They were clearly taking their job very seriously, and no one dared to go near them. Point two. Meanwhile, Tang Yi was surrounded by dozens of reporters. The flashbulbs were nonstop, and the sharp, tricky questions were coming thick and fast. Point two. Young Master Tang, how do you feel about your clubhouse being closed down? Two. May I ask if you're the mastermind behind this establishment? Two. How long have you been running this business? Two. May I ask if you'll bear all the consequences? Two. The Pearl on the Water went from heaven to hell overnight. How will you withstand this blow? Two. The more were asked, the more ridiculous the questions became. Tang Yi's face turned from green to red in anger, and he almost flew into a rage. Just as he started cursing, the assistant at his side quickly dragged him away. Point two. Young Master Tang, you just flirted with young Master Cheesewoman last night. Today his revenge is coming. The price of 4 bottles of presidential love is too high. The assistant could not help but complain. Point two. Many leaders have come to see this in person. You have lost a lot of face. 2. It would have been okay if he kept his mouth shut, but once he mentioned it, Tang Yi became even angrier. He cursed Chi Che countless times in his heart, and in the end, he wished he could go and give him a few more kicks. Point 2. Young Master Tang, look, that's young Master Chi's car. The assistant saw the familiar Bentley across from him and immediately informed his boss. Point 2. Tang Yi immediately rolled up his sleeves and rushed to the front of the Bentley to curse loudly. Chi-Che, you actually dare to stab me in the back. You're too F***ing mean. I'll ruin your life. 2. The assistant desperately held him back. Young Master Tang, calm down. All of this must be a conspiracy. This isn't the time for you to go head-to-head with young Master Chi. Besides, haven't you been schemed against countless times by young Master Chi since you were young? You should be used to it by now. 2. What did you say? Tang Yi glared at him and struck out, almost knocking his assistant to the ground. Point 2. Through the car window, Chi-Che's expression was unreadable. Tang Yi's rage barely stirred any emotions in him. Growing up, they were all too familiar with each other, including their weaknesses. The club being investigated was Tang Yi's biggest fear. He wasn't afraid of such a small loss, but he was terrified of his family's old master flying into a rage. Point 2. At the latest, he would be escorted back by his family that afternoon. Then, with another eyesore removed, it would be much easier for Chi-Che to do whatever he wanted. Point 2. What happened to young Master Tang? He looked anxious as she watched from the car. For what she could see, the situation didn't look good. However, with young Master Tang's background, it was surprising that someone had dared to challenge him at all. Not many were powerful enough to even consider such a thing. Point 2. Only time would tell. Point 2. Only then did Tang Yi notice Su He, who was sitting next to Chi-Che. He was so angry that he laughed instead. Chi-Che, you're ruthless. I'll admit defeat today. Sooner or later, though, you'll regret it. 2. Without waiting for him to finish speaking, Chi-Che gestured for Ju to drive on. The superior Bentley sped off at lightning speed, leaving behind a trail of exhaust fumes. Point 2. The assistant, who was cowering beside Tang Yi, pitifully held the phone in his hand. Young Master Tang, it's a call from Beijing. 2. Tang Yi snatched the phone up irritably. Before he could place it against his ear, a roar was heard. Rascal, you better scram back to Beijing immediately. Since you dared to be suspected of drug possession, I've lost all face. Your grandfather will definitely skin you alive. 2. The Tang family couldn't afford to lose face like this. Tang Yi closed his eyes, sighing heavily. He finally understood that this was Chi-Che's true goal, to send him away. Point 2. In the car, Su He fought against Chi-Che's embrace. What's the matter? Does your heart ache? Do you want to get out of the car? His voice was as cold as ice. Point 2. You've gone too far, too. What? Don't tell me you still want to get involved with Tang Yi. The anger in his eyes intensified. In his rage, he spoke without thinking. Point 2. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. In the driver's seat, Ju was so shocked that he ran 7 or 8 red lights. In the end, the car stopped in a hospital parking lot in a hurry. He was so embarrassed that he almost rolled and crawled out of the car. Point 2. He stood guard about 10 meters away from the car, his heart filled with anxiety. Point 2. Young Master Tang had always set a good example. Today, however, with the president's overbearing and perverted possessiveness, he had almost witnessed a good show. He didn't dare to wonder how he would be unlucky in the future, too. Today was proving to be a complete eye-opener for him. After following the president for so many years, he had always appeared indifferent, even when dealing with Fu Mengyao. In private, many people thought that the president was too cold. They did not expect him to have such a side. Point 2. The entrance of the hospital was divided into 2 rows and filled with people. The hospital's senior leaders, the international finance company's senior management, and many media reporters. Point 2. The busiest people today were the reporters. Half of them were here, and the other half were still at young Master Tang's Pearl on the Water Point 2. However, the Pearl on the Water matter had already come to an end, and the important people here had yet to appear. Point 2. Chi, the man of the hour, had yet to appear at such an important occasion as the Chi Corporation's merger and acquisition of the First Hospital's contract signing ceremony and press conference. Point 2. Hao Lianfei, who had been urgently transferred back from Africa, had rushed straight here as soon as she got off the plane to deal with all kinds of problems. She had been so busy that her feet hadn't touched the ground. Finally, when everyone was present except for the president, she had time to stop and think about this crazy merger. The price paid for the First Hospital's Chi group could not be said to be small, but she might have been able to understand Chi's reason for doing so. Vice President, are you sure the president will be here soon? Hao Yinfei stood in front of Lung Yunfeng, frowning slightly. The president has always been a workaholic and never delays anything. It's strange that he hasn't arrived yet. 2. Hao Yinfei's originally fair skin was tanned to a honey color and shone beautifully. Lung Yunfeng was stunned by what he saw. It wasn't until Hao Yinfei impatiently waved her hand in front of him that he came back to his senses. Point 2. He cleared his throat awkwardly and said, I couldn't get through to him on the phone. Du Ju was evasive. He only said that he wanted us to deal with the scene first and wait patiently. Hao Yinfei almost burst into flames. Is this a matter of waiting patiently? Dealing with the troublesome media is the public relations department's area. 2. In the VIP lounge, Fu Mingyao called Chi's cell phone again and again, and the only reply she received was, the cell phone you have dialed is switched off. 2. Her feeling of ill premonition grew stronger, with each call making her shiver all over. Ampai, what do you think Che is doing? Could it actually be more important than today's signing ceremony? Holding the cell phone, Fu Mingyao muttered to herself. Point 2. Chick, it doesn't even know that I'm his fiancé. 2. Sitting quietly opposite Fu Mingyao was Fu Juanxing's housekeeper Bai. Today, she looked different from the humble and obedient woman she was in the villa. There was a hint of shrewdness and depth in her. Her entire temperament was very much changed. Point 2. Young Master Chi should be with Lung Qing's daughter right now. Putting down the teacup, housekeeper Bai made a solemn vow. Recalling the past, her eyes revealed a fierce look and her words were sharp. Today's young Master Chi is exactly the same as Mr. Fu back then. I don't know what kind of bewitching potion that Vixen gave him. He doesn't know what his surname is anymore. 2. Fu Mingyao's phone fell to the ground with a clatter. She looked at housekeeper Bai in disbelief. You mean Che is with Su Hehe right now? Su Hehe was with Che after all? Huh. What did Joe. Point 2. It can't be wrong. The only one who can make young Master Chi lose control is Su Hehe. Housekeeper Bai's sharp eyes stared straight at her, and she spoke resentfully. Your mother has never fought against Lung Qing in her life. She was personally locked up in a mental hospital by Mr. Fu. You can't lose to her daughter now. 2. Of course I won't lose. I'm definitely not as useless as my mother. I'm Fu Juanxing's daughter. Having been raised by Fu Juanxing since she was young, she didn't have many feelings for her biological mother. Her only remaining memories came from housekeeper Bai's repeated exhortations. Point 2. The mother in her memory was definitely a failed woman to her. In the end, she was personally sent to the mental hospital by her fiancé. Fu Mingyao's life would never be as pitiful, hateful, and lamentable as hers. Point 2. Thinking of this, Fu Mingyao's eyes burned with intense hatred. The pride of being the first daughter and Fu Juanxing's high-pressure training since she was young had created her strong self-confidence and arrogance. Point 2. As the only heir of the Fu Corporation, she didn't believe that she would lose to the daughter of a little vixen. Point 2. Her mother had been locked in a mental hospital for her entire life, and she would definitely take revenge. Lung Qingge and Su Hehe would not have a happy ending. Point 2. Since Che is not coming, today's ceremony will be presided over by his fiancée. 2. Standing up and elegantly smoothing down the high-class custom-made dress on her body, Fu Mingyao raised her chin slightly and once again returned to being the insufferably arrogant first daughter. Point 2. Pushing open the door, Countless flashbulbs lit up. She smiled, confident and demure. At this moment, the halo above her head was clear to all, not only because of her identity as the first daughter, but also because of her future position as the young madam of the Chi Corporation. Point two. Her unique honor made women crazy with jealousy, but none would dare cross her vast wealth. She was confident that in the entire city, only she, Fu Mengyao, was worthy of Chi Che. In the narrow space, the little bit of rationality she had left finally controlled her thoughts. How could you act like that in front of Du Ju just now? She held back the words for a long time, but she couldn't say them. Point two. The smile in Chi Che's eyes deepened, and his thin lips curled into a shallow arc. Su He was so angry that she was punching and kicking him while he held her in his arms. However, she was too weak and couldn't pose a threat, so it was fine. A certain someone actually closed his eyes and looked like he was enjoying himself. Point two. Be more serious. I'm going to be late for work. Desperate, she unconsciously softened her voice, and the smile on her face clearly showed that she was acting coquettishly. Point two. Chi Che's eyes darkened as a complicated emotion flashed across his face. Point two. He was too beautiful. Between pure and charming, he wished he could hide her forever at home, keep her in his pocket, and melt her into his bones and blood. Point two. It was rumored that Fu Jianxing had imprisoned a woman for a lifetime. At this moment, he could finally understand that he might be even crazier than Fu Jianxing had been that day. Point two. What's wrong with you? Chi Che had been in a daze for too long and gave her a fright. Point two. Chi Che shook his head. His eyes were clear and cold, perfectly concealing his fanaticism just now. He whispered seductively into her ear. Don't go to work. He Fifin doesn't like you anyway. 2. No. He firmly refused. I need to join his medical team. 2. He Fifin's medical team was famous all over the country. It had top-notch medical facilities and top-notch medical talent. It was the envy of countless people and specialized in serving the powerful. Point two. Actually, the main reason she chose to work at the first hospital was to join He Fifin's medical team. She wanted to give it a try. For her mother, even if she had to beg that person, she would also ask for his forgiveness. Point two. The person she couldn't rest easy about was her mother. Only by allowing her to return to the family would she be able to completely break free from Fu Jianxing's control. Point two. Unfortunately, He Heffen had left the country on the second day of her work to attend a hospital exchange meeting, so she had never had the chance to make this request. When she heard that he was coming back today, she didn't want to wait any longer. Point two. What's so difficult about that? I just need to make a call, Chi Che said nonchalantly. In the end, he didn't forget to glance at her contemptuously. Don't tell me that you want to enter based on your own abilities. That's simply a fantasy. You should know how much Fifin hates you. 2. He was embarrassed and angry at the same time. Her slender, jade-like fingers poked his chest. I don't want to owe you a favor again. Chi Che frowned when he heard this and mocked coldly. I don't mind if you owe me one more time. 2. You already have a fiancé. Even though she had always warned herself not to think about the fact that he had a fiancé, she couldn't ignore it. It was a lie to say that a person who loved her had a wife who would accompany him for the rest of his life. She was actually extremely sad. Point two. Su He, you left when I wanted to marry you. Now that you're back, am I still supposed to marry you? Chi Che's voice was bone-chilling. Follow me forever. I will never let go of you, but Madame Chi's position has long belonged to Meng Yao. Su He's face was completely drained of blood. It was pale as a sheet of paper, and her vision turned black. Her heart was filled with boundless desolation. A voice warned her over and over again. Su He, you can't escape your mother's fate. You and your mother are destined to be mistresses. You're even worse than your mother. Chi Che is even more ruthless than Fu Jianxing. He hates your betrayal. He clearly knows that you hate mistresses the most, yet he uses this to torture you. He's taking revenge on you. 2. The stifling pain in her heart was unbearable as she fainted in Chi Che's arms. Point two. The calm and composed man suddenly panicked. Whatever hatred or damned self-esteem he had, all of them could go to hell. The car door was kicked open by his long legs. Du Ju, who had been standing guard not far away, turned pale with fright and hurriedly rushed forward. When he saw Su He limp in Chi-Che's arms, his expression was awkward, and he couldn't help but persuade him in a strange tone. "President, Miss Su is such a frail person. You should be gentler, too." However, Chi-Che didn't notice Du Ju's expression. Looking at the person in his arms, he felt both guilty and full of heartache. "I'm such a bastard." He's betrayal had planted a thorn in his heart. It hurt him, and he, in turn, had hurt her point too. Love was a double-edged sword. No one could have a good life. "President, why don't I do it?" There was still some distance between the parking lot and the hospital entrance, but Chi-Che was carrying Su He too quickly. Du Ju was worried that he would say something wrong while following behind them, but he did not expect Chi-Che to give him such a fierce look point too. "How dare you two?" Withdrawing his hand embarrassedly, Du Ju hurriedly shook his head. He didn't dare. He was even more afraid of dying than young Master Tang point two. In the square in front of the hospital, the press conference had reached its end. Chi International's merger with the first hospital was already a foregone conclusion point two. On the red carpet paved platform, Fu Mingyao stood at the head of the Chi group's many high-ranking officials. She was talking and laughing cheerfully, calmly answering all kinds of questions from the reporters point two. At the end, many reporters started shifting the topic to the relationship between the two of them point two. "Hello, Miss Fu. May I ask when you and President Xi will hold the wedding? There has been a rumor that the wedding was coming. Why has it been delayed?" "2. Yes. Miss Fu, is it your idea or President Xi's idea that the wedding is not held?" 2. The smile on Fu Mingyao's lips froze. She only came back to her senses after being gently tugged by housekeeper Bai, who was behind her. She said lightly, "The most important thing is that we're both too busy. Besides, we're still young, so we're not in a hurry to get married for the time being." 2. Fu Mingyao gritted her teeth so hard that they almost broke. She had hinted many times, but she just wouldn't let go. "May I ask, Miss Fu, are the rumors about President Xi and movie star Lung Feifei true or false?" A certain reporter, like a cat that had smelled a fishy smell, grabbed onto this topic tightly point two. "Miss Lung and Che are just good friends. Miss Lung's family has experienced a huge change, and as a friend, Che only did a little to help." Fu Mingyao's tone contained a hint of sarcasm, and her expression was unhappy point two. Someone must be backing them up for the reporters to dare ask such a sharp question today. Otherwise, no one would dare to take the risk of closing shop to offend her point two. She glanced at Hao Lianfei beside her with a strong warning point two. Hao Lianfei shrugged her shoulders indifferently. She had just gotten off the plane. It was too late for her to do anything. However, no matter who did it, she also vented her anger. The reporters below smelled a story. Chi-Che, Fu Mingyao, and Lung Feifei's love triangle had always been the most interesting topic of gossip in the media, but they had been intimidated by Chi-Che and Fu Mingyao's identities, not daring to report on it. How could they be willing to let go of this opportunity so easily today? 2. Lung Feifei has publicly said that if she wants to marry, she will marry President Xi. As his official fiancé, what do you think about this? Hao Lianfei had been covering her mouth and snickering at the side. She muttered softly, "What opinion can I have? Of course, I'll kill her with a knife." Fu Mingyao is quite sad sometimes. She clearly wants to kill someone, but she can't say it out loud. 2. Lung Yinfeng was speechless. The war between women was really scary. "Actually, Miss Lung and I are also friends. She likes our Che, which can only mean that she has good taste." 2. The reporters below couldn't help but burst into laughter and said one after another, "Miss Fu, you have to watch such an outstanding man like President Xi carefully. Otherwise, he will be taken away by a mistress." 2. I'm sorry that today's press conference has come to an end. Seeing that the questions were getting more and more ridiculous, Lung Yinfeng could no longer watch the show from the side and hurriedly stepped forward to handle a point two. Chi-Che had always hated his private life being too closely followed by the paparazzi's gossip. If he found out later, he might vent his anger on others point two. Get out of the way. An explosive roar suddenly sounded from behind the crowd. The people who were about to leave turned around and saw a handsome man in a black suit carrying a delicate woman in his arms. His movements were gentle and meticulous. His deep eyes carried a rarely seen nervousness point too. The woman's head was resting against Chi-Che's chest, and her appearance could not be seen clearly. Her wavy and bright, long hair hung down her back, and her aura was gentle, frail, and charming point too. The perfect combination was so beautiful that it was as if she had walked out of a painting. Many photographers were naturally sensitive to beauty, instinctively pressing the button to capture this beautiful scene point too. Immediately, everyone rushed over. Chi-Che was instantly surrounded by an impenetrable crowd. The flashbulbs flashed crazily, without an end in sight point too. Chi-Che stood in the middle with Su He in his arms. He looked at Fu Mengyao across the crowd and cast a cold glance at her. There was only a trace of guilt in his eyes, but barely any emotion at all point too. Fu Mengyao stood proudly on the stage. Her whole body was stiff, and she nearly lost consciousness. Her vision turned black, but she told herself again and again in her heart that she must not fall. She had lost enough face today. If she acted like an ordinary shrew at this time, it would only cause Che to hate her, and she would lose her identity as the heir of the Fu family point too. Housekeeper Bai stood behind Fu Mengyao and spoke gloomily. Su He is indeed good. She doesn't lose to Lung Chinga's seduction in the past at all. 2. Aunt Bai, is there any way for me to get pregnant with Che's child? Fu Mengyao looked coldly at the clamor below the stage. Chi-Che's anxious expression was so annoying point too. Back then, Madame used this trick to make that slut Lung Chinga and Mr. Fu fall in love, but hate each other until they die. Housekeeper Bai revealed a trace of a strange smile. She reached into her pocket and took out a small white paper bag, stuffing it into Fu Mingyao's hands. She earnestly reminded her, if you give it to him to drink, he will treat you as the woman he loves the most. Remember, don't make a fool of yourself and make the same mistake Madame made back then. 2. What mistake did Mother make back then? Housekeeper Bai's special exhortation aroused Fu Mingyao's curiosity. Point 2. You don't need to know about this. The farce has just begun, and the good show is still to come. You go first. 2. Okay, 2. In her days, Su He felt that it was very noisy. The strong lights around her made it so that she couldn't open her eyes. The dull pain in her chest was still ongoing. Her hands were powerless as she grabbed Chi-Che's collar, and her uncomfortable little face scrunched up together. Point 2. The man who was blocked by the reporters had a nervous expression on his face. He impatiently kicked the male reporter who was closest to him away. The burly man who was 1.8 meters tall was actually kicked 3 meters away by him, instantly scaring everyone. The people from the Chi Corporation and the hospital took the opportunity to use the human wall to block off a path leading to the hospital's main entrance point too. Chi-Che carried Su He and rushed past everyone to the emergency room. Du Ju, Lung Yunfeng, Hao Yinfei, and the others followed closely behind. President Cheng, who had long received the notice from Du Ju, personally arranged for the best doctors in the hospital to wait in the emergency room. Everyone get out. President Cheng, who had always been smiling, finally cleared everyone out with a stern and unyielding attitude. Point 2. Chi-Che stood silently in front of the hospital bed, staring at Su He, unwilling to leave no matter what. In the end, He Fifan, who had rushed over, dragged him out. Point 2. President Cheng had his assistant wait by the side as he personally gave Su He the foredrip he had prepared earlier. He poured some water and gave her medicine before sitting in front of the hospital bed with a gloomy expression. Point 2. Thank you, President Cheng. He forced her eyes open and gave him a grateful smile. If it wasn't for you, the secret that I wanted to keep forever would have been exposed. 2. This is the condition we agreed on when you agreed to come to our hospital. However, you can't be so unkind to yourself. President Cheng sighed heavily. I don't know if what I'm doing is right or wrong. Young Master Chi seems to be really worried about you. If he knew about this, he would definitely hate himself to death. Having known Chi Che for many years, he had never seen him so nervous about someone. As a man, being deceived by the woman he loved must not feel good. Point two. That's why I can't let him know. He looked out of the window in a daze. Through the separating blinds, she could vaguely see the tall and sturdy man standing in the corridor, not moving an inch. Point two. President Chung, you know what to tell Ache later, right? Too much pressure? Weak body, low blood sugar. President Chung looked at her angrily, speaking earnestly. No wonder your teacher repeatedly told me to look after you. You really don't know how to cherish yourself. You clearly have to endure tremendous pain every day. How did you manage to perfectly conceal it? That is a life that is disappearing. How can you be so indifferent to yourself? 2. A weak smile appeared on the lips of President Cheng's target. He muttered in a low voice, I have never had a father since I was young. President Chung, you are like my father. 2. Poor child. President Chung could not help but sigh deeply. He grasped her hand kindly and said with heartache, Who is such an excellent daughter as you? It's a great blessing. God is too cruel. It's really too cruel, too. He's eyes darkened. When you invited me back to China, I heard that your grandson suffered from dilated cardiomyopathy. I will invite my mentor's medical team here. Please arrange the surgery as soon as possible, while my physical condition is still acceptable. I'm afraid I won't be able to make it if it's too late. 2. President Cheng's love for her came from the bottom of his heart. This was the first time she had felt the warmth of a father. The only thing she could do in return was to help cure his grandson's illness. Point 2. Severe dilated cardiomyopathy was a near incurable disease of the heart. It would take a very difficult surgery. Point 2. Su He covered her face with her hands. There were tears in her eyes, and the corner of her mouth curled into an almost imperceptible grimace. She muttered to herself, These hands have saved many people, but they can't save me. 2. President Chung instantly burst into tears. He looked at her with extreme excitement, so nervous that he looked like a child. Your mentor, Professor Angus, won't agree to let you be the chief surgeon. Would it really be okay? As an expert in the heart surgery department, he knew very well how small the success rate of dilated cardiomyopathy surgery was. However, if he was chief surgeon during his grandson's surgery, there was a stronger chance of success. Point 2. I will convince him, too. Thank you so much. I will personally apologize to Professor Angus. 2. Su He's condition faded once more, and when President Chung personally announced that it was only caused by low blood sugar, Chi Che actually turned around and left without looking back. He didn't even take a step into the ward. Through the blinds, he felt her heart ache as she watched him leave. She closed her eyes and tears dripped down her face. Point 2. Ache, you're in a lot of pain, aren't you? Wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to torture each other? 2. Many of the Chi group's executives followed Chi Che and left without saying a word. A group of people with strong auras walked across the hospital's shiny marble floor, with all the passers-by making way for them. Point 2. The gossipy reporters outside the hospital were stopped by layer after layer of heavy security. They only reluctantly dispersed after everyone important got into their cars and left. Point 2. Du Ju, who was in the driver's seat, spoke hesitantly. President, why didn't you go in and see Miss Su? He was obviously nervous. Point 2. Chi Che rubbed his temples tiredly. His voice was hoarse when he answered. Maybe she doesn't want to see me. Thinking of how he had so obviously avoided him ever since her return, he couldn't help but furrow his brows even deeper. Point 2. He hadn't expected the situation today. It was the most disadvantageous for her to make such a big fuss, but it was also the best opportunity he had to force her to stay by his side. Point 2. Then, do we need to suppress today's scandal? 2. Not for the time being. Chi Che waved his hand. Point 2. But it will be very disadvantageous for Miss Su, right? Du Ju could already imagine how badly everyone would scold Su He. Point 2. When did you become so wishy-washy? 2. Du Ju had been about to say, I wasn't worried for you. Unfortunately, he didn't dare to say the rest of his sentence. Point 2. The next day, the overwhelming reports made people dizzy. All the newspapers and magazines reported the shocking news in huge, detailed, and 365-degree angle articles. Point 2. A diamond bachelor abandons his first daughter and falls in love with a vixen. 2. A shocking scandal. His first daughter is unable to compete with his ex-girlfriend. He's drunk at a bar late at night. 2. She grew president. Who do you love? 2. Sue Hee, the fighter jet of a mistress. Her methods are comparable to Deng. 2. For a time, Sue Hee's limelight even surpassed that of movie and television stars. She was ranked first on the online real-time search rankings. Point 2. In the VIP ward, Sue Hee, who had slept for an entire day and night, finally regained her energy. She drank a bowl of millet porridge that President Chung had someone send over. In her heart, she was thinking about how she should tell her teacher about the surgery when he called. Point 2. It took too much energy. Half a year ago, her teacher had decided not to allow her to be the chief surgeon anymore. Point 2. Sue Hee, you're awake. Hao Lianfei held a bunch of bright and beautiful lilies in her arms and carried a basket of fruits of all kinds of food in her hands. She pushed the door open and walked in with her high heels. Point 2. She placed the flowers into a vase carefully, and she sat in front of Hee with a sly smile on her face. As expected, you did not disappoint us. You must wear a helmet when you go out now. 2. Why would I wear a helmet? 2. I'm afraid that you'll be pelted with rotten eggs. Hao Lianfei shrugged helplessly and spread her hands. You're the woman who stole the first daughter's man. In private, all the female colleagues in the company admire you so much that they can't wait to paste your photo into a shrine and worship you. 3 incense sticks in the morning and evening. Fu Mingyao's face must have turned green with anger, right? 2. Hee smiled bitterly. Is that so, too? Your smile is even uglier than your crying. Hao Lianfei rolled her eyes and raised the white flag to surrender. All right, I won't make fun of you anymore. Didn't President Chung say that your blood sugar is low? Why has he kept you hospitalized and not allowed you to be discharged? 2. Maybe he's making a mountain out of a molehill. If it wasn't for President Chung forcing her to recuperate for a few more days, she would have been discharged long ago. However, when she thought about how she didn't know how to face Che when she returned to the villa, she simply agreed to President Chang's request. Point 2. All right, today, the president called He Fief into his office and requested for you to join his medical team as the chairman of the hospital. I heard that He Fiefin was so angry that he slammed the door and left. 2. Hao Lianfei shook her head and sighed repeatedly. TSK, TSK. First, he chased young Master Tang away, and now he's offended young Master He. Our president doesn't want anything else for you. Su Hee looked dejected. Are you hiding something from me? Hao Lianfei raised her eyebrows and looked at Hee suspiciously when she saw her depressed look. If you have anything, you'd better tell me honestly. If I find out that you're still thinking of lying to me, I definitely won't forgive you. 2. Even Fei Fei wouldn't forgive her for hiding, let alone the arrogant Che. Su Hee suddenly felt that there was no need for her to say anything. Che wasn't the only one who was brooding. If even Fei Fei was secretly worried about her, how could she dare to hope for Che's complete trust? 2. Fei Fei, I'm tired. The storm outside the hospital had nothing to do with her. She only wanted to rest well and complete her goal. She didn't have the energy to deal with the constant disturbances. Point 2. Hao Lianfei wanted to speak, but didn't have the words. She hesitated for a moment before picking up her bag and saying farewell before leaving. Point 2. There seemed to be an invisible barrier between their friendship. She felt that no matter how hard she tried, she could not enter Hee's heart. Point 2. There was another knock on the door. Dr. Jiang pushed the card in and personally brought the medicine to her. Point 2. Su Hee smiled politely. How can it be that Dr. Jiang personally brings my medicine? Where's the nurse? 2. Hearing this, Jiang Yuan's expression was awkward. He did not answer the question, speaking around it instead. Our director thinks very highly of you. He made this medicine for you personally, without letting anyone else touch it. 2. The old man was afraid that the medicine he used would be discovered by others, of course. Hee quietly stuck out her tongue and smiled at him. She answered casually, "Thank you, Dr. Jiang, for being willing to take care of me at this time. I'm really grateful." 2. After accurately finding the blood vessels on the back of her fair hand, Jiang Yuan applied the tape and addressed her seriously. "You already know about it, too." Su He nodded slightly. "I guess no one in the entire hospital is willing to take care of me, right? I'm really grateful for you, since they criticize me so much." They must have scolded her harshly behind her back, but so what? She had been hearing it since she was young, and she was almost used to it, too. "They're just jealous of you because you're so nice," Jiang Yuan said from the bottom of his heart. "I guess you won't have a foothold in the hospital in the future. You must be mentally prepared." 2. "Yes, I know." 2. "Aren't you angry?" He's nonchalant look surprised Jiang Yuan. He felt that the woman in front of him was becoming more and more incomprehensible. However, he felt that she was telling him that she was definitely not the rumored mistress, who stole other people's husbands' point too. "So what if I'm angry?" Her eyes, that were as bright as the stars, raised a mocking smile. Her fair and almost transparent face carried an unnatural beauty point too. May I pursue you?" Jiang Yuan blurted out impulsively. He suddenly remembered the scene of the press conference yesterday. She must be the woman who was held in President Xi's hands. How could she fall for him? 2. "I'm sorry, that was rude of me. Rest well, and I'll come back to check on you." Without waiting for her reply, Jiang Yuan pushed the card out and almost ran away. Point 2. Su He lay on the bed, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. She wasn't that scary, right? "You're too shameless." A sharp and harsh voice came from the door. Yin Chuqing came over gracefully in her high heels. Point 2. Her exquisite facial features were filled with intense hatred, ruining all the good things she had done in the past. Su He felt a chill in her heart. The woman in front of her felt very unfamiliar. Was this still the first campus belle? 2. The three beauties of the university had fallen to pieces. Even the first campus belle, such a goddess, viewed her as a thorn in her side. It seemed that she was still worthy of her title as a vixen. Point 2. Su He sat up from the bed and looked straight at Yin Chuqing. She spoke politely, keeping her distance. "Thank you, Senior Yin, for being able to visit me." 2. Sharp fingernails grabbed her neck and threatened her sternly. "Do you know? I hate you the most. Not only did Che chop off number 9's hand for you, he even wanted to chase me out of the country. Su He, I won't let you off." 2. He pushed her hand away forcefully. He took a few deep breaths before he said calmly, "I didn't mean to hurt you. I know you like Ache. When I saw you hugging Ache from behind, I hated you too. But now, I don't hate you anymore because we're all the same." Yin Chuqing's ferocious expression froze, and a trace of loneliness flashed across her exquisite face. So she knew everything that happened back then, but she didn't know how Chi Che pushed her away so coldly. It was better to let her misunderstand. In the end, the conversation with Yin Chuqing ended on bad terms. Su He lay on the bed, exhausted. He closed the door of the ward and refused all visitors. The phone beside him kept ringing, so noisy that she simply turned off her phone. The scandal that filled the entire city came crashing down. Presumably, her mother must have endured it the same way back then, right? In the afternoon, President Chung came over with a look of embarrassment. He stammered for a long time before he told her what had happened. "You can't stay in a hospital for the time being. I've arranged a place for you to stay, and you can rest in peace there. I'll do my best to help you with the matter of entering He Fifin's medical team. You don't have to worry." The protesters and the media blocking the hospital's entrance had already affected the normal operation of the hospital. Even the entire hospital was protesting. He hadn't expected things to turn out this bad. The smile on Su He's lips turned colder. Things had already developed to the point where even President Chung couldn't handle it. Fu Mingyao's methods of manipulating the media were indeed formidable. She had experienced it, and it wasn't any worse than Madame Fu's methods back then. When he came out of Su He's ward, President Cheng's phone, which was in the pocket of his white coat, started to vibrate. When he picked up the phone, the deep, cello-like voice made President Chung reveal a gratified smile. If young Master Qi was willing to intervene, there would definitely be a turn for the better. "Hello, President Chung." I think the villa you arranged might not be able to stop the media reporters. Perhaps it would be more appropriate for me to arrange this place." There was no emotion in the faint voice. President Chung nodded repeatedly. "It's best for you to intervene with young Master Chi's ability. Then, I'll have to trouble you. You're too polite. The one who should be troubling you should be me." President Cheng's extra concern made Chi Che feel a trace of displeasure in his heart. He had never seen this old fellow so concerned about anyone before. Yes, yes." Fu Mingyao stood in the rain for half an hour in the number 70 villa of Sunset Lake. The cold rain fell on her face, freezing her to the point that she almost lost consciousness. Butler Bai looked at her with heartache. "You're the only heir of the Fu Corporation. How can you be wronged like this?" There was a faint hatred in her voice. "Aunt Bai, don't say too much. Father will definitely see me." From a young age, the number 70 villa had always been a taboo in the Fu family. She had only come here secretly 3 times, and each time she had caused father to fly into a rage. Today, Che had personally come to the general manager's office on the 70th floor of the Fu Corporation. In the past 5 years, Che had never come to the 70th floor. Today, he had come only for that B*TCH Su He. The cold and elegant man's thin lips curled up slightly. A few faint words extinguished all the joy she felt because he had personally come. Even if they had been together in the past, it had been a deal where both parties had gotten what they wanted. After all, how could he give up 5 years of hard work just like that? Since he could not care about anything for Su He, then why should she be merciful? The heavy door slowly opened and the old butler said kindly, "Come in, young miss. Sir is waiting for you in the study." After casually changing into a set of home clothes, Fu Mingyao came to Fu Juanqing's study with some trepidation. Fu Juanqing's strictness accompanied her all the time since she was young. Her father, who worshipped her from the bottom of his heart, never gave her a smile. With his back facing the door, Fu Juanqing's tall figure gave her a heavy sense of oppression. As the successor of the Fu Corporation, you can't even defeat a woman of unknown background. "How can I trust you with the Fu Corporation?" The dignified voice questioned. "Father, please give me a chance. I will definitely handle this matter properly. I will definitely not lose the face of the Fu Corporation." Fu Mingyao's eyes were bloodshot from hatred. Her slender nails were pinching her palms until they were dripping with blood. "Today, Chi Che proposed to break off the engagement with you. It wasn't a question, but a confirmation. Even if Fu Juanqing didn't leave Villa number 70, there seemed to be nothing that could be hidden from his eyes. Up until now, he hasn't gotten you pregnant. It seems that he really doesn't love you," Fu Juanqing said straightforwardly. Fu Mingyao took a deep breath. Her face was ghastly pale, but she didn't dare to say anything to refute him. She had an indescribable, complex emotion when dealing with Fu Juanqing. She worshipped and longed for his father's love, but she was also afraid of his cruel methods. The protective measures of Chi Che were really too good. They were watertight, so she couldn't take advantage of any loopholes. Moreover, she was always the one who fell in love with him, so she even forgot to take advantage of any loopholes. No matter what, Chi Che is the son-in-law that I've decided on. If I can't use your methods, Fu Juanqing, don't want a useless daughter. Please don't worry, father. I won't let you down." A cold smile appeared on her lips. As Fu Juanqing's daughter, it was her pride. How could she be a stupid and shallow person? It was simply foolish to come knocking on her door like Yin Chuqing. How could she not have anything in her stomach if she wanted to secure her position as the young madam of the Qi family? The phone in her hand rang with a pleasant ringtone. Fu Mingyao pressed the answer button, and Fifin's lazy voice sounded, "As you wish." "Thank you for being extraordinary." The sneer on her lips deepened. In a charming bar, the 2 men who had been sitting in the corner all night attracted countless beautiful women to approach them. Because of their imposing bearing, they were as handsome as gods, especially the man who had been drinking quietly. His cold temperament was as clear as ice, and there was not a trace of impurity in it. Such an outstanding man had suddenly appeared in front of them, and every woman was eyeing him covetously. "Is he the CEO of the Qi Group?" Someone with sharp eyes gasped. It can't be. How could the noble CEO of the Chi Group come to a place like this? It was rumored that young Master Chi would never go to a messy place other than the Pearl in the Water. There were more than 10 empty wine bottles in a mess in front of Chi Che. He was drunk and looked down on the fierce gazes around him. Now, he was regretting his plan to seal Tang Yi's Pearl on the Water. The Pearl on the Water won't have any annoying pickup lines. Fifin was also annoyed by the whole night's pickup lines. He played with the wine glass in his hand. When he saw that the glass in front of Chi Che was empty, he hurriedly handed it over. Seeing him drink it all in one gulp, the smile on his lips deepened as he said ambiguously, "Ah, Che, don't blame me. I'm doing this for your own good. Meng Yao really loves you very much. There's only so much I can do for her." His voice grew softer and softer towards the end. In the end, it was completely drowned out by the noisy music. Meng Yao had followed Ah Che for 5 years, and he had also loved Meng Yao for 5 years. He couldn't control himself. Even if he couldn't have her, he still wanted her to be happy. That was why he hated Su Hehe so much. "Fifin, we grew up together as brothers. Will you betray me like Su Hehe one day?" Fifin's expression darkened. He knew that Chi Che was already drunk, but he couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. Chi Che's gaze gradually blurred. He propped his forehead with one hand and said with a frown, "But you betrayed me, yet I still can't let it go? Let's make up. Let's start again." Fifin's expression became uglier. He stood up and helped him up. "I'll send you back to rest after you've drunk too much." He offered it in the middle of the night. His relatives supported him and begged for his collection and recommendation. After coming out of the Sky Villa in the Ziefeng building, Fifin sat on the flower bed downstairs in discomfort. When he thought of Meng Yao hugging the drunk and unconscious Chi Che just now, his heart felt as if someone had used a blunt knife to slice it down. For Meng Yao, for himself, and also for Chi Che. In the end, he couldn't help but take out his cell phone and dialed Tang Yi's number. His usual laughter and curses could be heard from the phone. "Yo, I say, Dr. He, it's gonna rain red today. You actually thought of calling me in the middle of your busy schedule? Don't tell me you want to see how miserable I am being beaten up by the old man at home. What do you think will happen if I do something to let Che down that day? Will he forgive me the same way he forgave Su Hehe? Don't flatter yourself. Aren't you looking for trouble if you dare to compare yourself to Su Hehe? Che is a typical scoundrel who forgets loyalty at the sight of a woman. If you really do something to let him down, then just wait to be beaten up." Fifin hung up the phone and ran to the entrance of the Sky Villa, but was blocked by Butler Bai. "Young Master He, it's already so late, you should rest." Butler Bai's face was cold as he smiled sinisterly. He had long expected that Fifin and Chi Che's relationship was extraordinary. Perhaps he would regret it. And it was indeed true. "It's too late. Young Master He, please go back." On the gorgeous Persian carpet, Chi Che's expression was hazy and filled with deep affection. His deep, cello-like voice muttered over and over again, he, I love you." Fu Mingyao felt as if someone had poured a basin of ice water on her from head to toe. Her nails dug deeply into the thick carpet, and the hatred in her eyes seemed to want to devour someone. "Su Hehe, you deserve to die." In the middle of the night, Su Hehe was woken up by a loud knock on the door. This was a small villa that President Chung had arranged for her in the suburbs. The environment was quiet, and there was no noise from the outside world and the overwhelming scolding. No one knew who would come here in the middle of the night. Through the peephole, Du Ju was walking around anxiously. Opening the door, Du Ju and Lung Yunfeng stepped in anxiously. "Is the president here?" Du Ju grabbed Su Hehe's shoulder and for the first time showed a nervous expression. She shook her head inexplicably. She was confused and didn't have time to wonder how they knew about this place. She hurriedly asked, "How is Che?" "The president is missing. I can't get through to him no matter how hard I try." A bad premonition came over her, and her right eye kept twitching. Usually, Che and Du Ju were inseparable. If Du Ju didn't know where Che was, the situation would be serious. "I don't have it here." Hurry up and find him. Okay. Wait a minute. I'll go with you. Lung Yinfeng stopped her. No, you can't go out at this time. The company and the CEO's residence are all reporters. What he meant was that he wanted to avoid suspicion. Su He's right foot stepped out of the door and stopped an inch away from the floor. The ugly humiliation made her beautiful eyes glare angrily. What? Am I so shameful? She did not care how the outside world scolded her. What she cared about was that her former classmate, her former good friend, actually looked at her like that she, Su He, was an illegitimate daughter. Her origins were unknown, but she was not so easily trampled upon. Everyone knows whether or not we can meet people. You. Su He's eyes were cold, but he could not say the rest of his words. He tried hard to suppress the anger in his chest and said faintly, "You know very well, President Lung, please see yourself out." Du Ju secretly shook his head. He did not understand why so many people did not appreciate Su He's good temper and innocent girl. After closing the door and sending the two of them off, Su He sat quietly on the sofa. The news of Che losing contact made her lose all sense of direction. She thought over and over again about whether her current choice was right or wrong in her mind. She recalled the bits and pieces of her acquaintance and love with Che. The man who was as clear as ice gave her endless love and protection. But the only thing she could return was hurt again and again. Even if her heart was made of iron, it had long melted. It was not that she did not love, it was that she could not love. But what was the standard of not being able to love? Perhaps it was just her own wishful thinking. Even if she only had 1 year of life, why would she watch him being affectionate with another woman? Her mother was right. If she loved him deeply, why didn't she snatch him back even if tomorrow was the end of her life? At least she wouldn't have any regrets. Che, you're Su He's. Picking up the phone beside her, He made an important decision. She entered a familiar number, and the other party quickly picked up the call. "Hello, I'm in Juanhao." A concise and powerful voice came through the phone. "Hello, Uncle," and holding the phone, he realized how difficult this decision was. Uncle had never married for his mother's sake, and his mother owed him a lot. Now, he himself had no choice but to walk the same path as his mother. It was destined to be a tragedy. One was suffering for life, and the other was short-lived. The pain of 2 generations of mother and daughter. She could no longer tell whether she should hate Fu Juanxing or the Su family in Beijing. And Juanhao was so excited that he spilled the coffee in his hand. An important contract had been splashed beyond recognition, but he could no longer care so much. Is your mother okay?" His voice couldn't help but tremble. Taking a deep breath, he tried his best to make his voice sound calm. "Mother is fine." His mother had been imprisoned by Fu Juanxing for 20 years, and there had been no news of her in the outside world. Uncle had been looking for his mother. Even though his mother had been ruthless and cut off all ties with him, he was still persistent. "That's good." The voice in the middle of the night was filled with endless desolation. And Juanhao was a big shot in the entertainment industry, a gold medal producer, the president of Starlight Entertainment Company, and a person who gathered thousands of stars together. Who knew how lonely he was in the dead of night? Perhaps it was because he understood his loneliness and sadness that he never contacted him. No matter what request he had, Uncle would never refuse. As long as you're willing to call me, it's fine. I'll think of a way to suppress the scandal tomorrow. I want to be with AHCHE. And Juanhao was stunned. After a long while, he replied, "You finally got over it. I'm very happy for you. I've long said that you shouldn't hide it from Che. If Che finds out in the future, he will definitely hate himself to death." Only men understood men better. And she bit her red lips tightly. "Right now, my life is worse than death. I really want to let go, but I can't let go. Don't be sad. The successor of Starlight Entertainment isn't someone who can be easily bullied. Even number 1 daughter has to think twice." And Juanhao snorted coldly. The domineering aura of a person who had been in a position of power for a long time was clearly revealed. He was never married and had no children. He had long made a will, and Su He was the sole successor of Starlight Entertainment. "Uncle, thank you. Apart from thanking her, he didn't know what else to say. In fact, what he owed couldn't be repaid with the words, "Thank you. Have a good rest. Everything will be fine tomorrow." After hanging up with Ju and Hao, he noticed that there were dozens of missed calls from Hao Lianfei. Before she could reply, Hao Lianfei's call immediately came in. "Fei, what's the matter so late?" She pressed the answer button and said calmly. Hao Lianfei shouted anxiously over the phone. "Something big has happened. Come to the Sky Villa in Zifeng building immediately." "What's the matter?" Her right eye suddenly jumped. "It's about Chi. You're almost there." "I'll be there soon." Rolling around, asking for collections, recommendations, comments, and close encouragement were my motivation to update. Standing at the entrance of the villa in the sky of the Purple Peak building, Su He felt his footsteps become weak and his body became bone-chilling. Butler Bai gave her a sinister smile and crossed his arms in front of his chest as if he was watching a good show. He stood at the entrance and waited for her arrival. He suddenly came to a realization, and the coldness in his heart became even colder. It turned out that even Fei had been bribed. In the gorgeous hall, the usually elegant and beautiful Fu Mingyao sat on the ground with a haggard face and disheveled clothes for the first time. Chiche's black shirt was casually buttoned up. At this moment, he was lazily sitting on the leather sofa with his long legs casually crossed. He looked down at Fu Mingyao with an indifferent expression, and his tone was as cold as ice. "Take the medicine and don't spit it out." "Che, do you really want to treat me like this? I'm your fiancée, and I have the right to bear your child. You actually forced me to take the medicine. Don't tell me that my Fu Corporation is really easy to bully." Fu Mingyao screamed hysterically. She had already let go of her pride and schemed to this extent. She didn't expect Chi to be so ruthless and force her to take the medicine in front of so many people. "Who else has the right to bear your child besides me? That slut Su He is absolutely impossible. Don't forget how she betrayed you and abandoned you." Chi stood up abruptly and cut her off with a cold expression. "Enough. Have you had enough? Don't waste my last bit of patience with you." "Chi, you're so ruthless." Fu Mingyao closed her eyes in pain. Tears flowed down her delicate and beautiful chin. "I've loved you deeply for 5 years. Don't you have any feelings for me at all?" I'll let her taste the consequences of Su He's betrayal. As for you, don't scheme against me. As long as you keep to your duty, no one can touch your title as young Madam Chi. The elegant man who was as clear as ice curled his lips into a devilish smile, his deep eyes narrowed slightly. No one could understand the emotions hidden deep within his eyes. Su He's body staggered, as if he had been hammered by Meng Meng. If he hadn't held onto the door in time, he would definitely have fallen heavily to the ground. "Ju, give her the medicine. Send someone to watch over Miss Fu 24 hours a day." Chiche's handsome face became increasingly stern. His entire body emitted an ice-cold aura that kept others at 1,000 miles away. Even He Fifan and Lung Yunfeng didn't dare to have any objections as they stood obediently to the side. "Chiche," Fu Mingyao was still trying to make a final struggle. "Even if you're really pregnant, I won't keep the child." In his heart, there was only one woman who was qualified to give birth to a child for him. Thinking of Su He, his expression unconsciously softened. Fu Mingyao crossed her arms over her shoulders with a desolate expression. Her body was on the verge of collapsing as He Fifan, who was beside her, held her up. The atmosphere at the scene was so stifling that it was hard to breathe. Everyone silently watched the man who was looking down from above. Ju held the medicine in his hands with an awkward expression on his face. "Enough." Suddenly, a voice rang out. It was like a stone thrown into a calm lake, instantly causing countless waves. The silent and steady man suddenly turned his head and looked at Su He, who was standing at the entrance, flustered. For the first time, a trace of uneasiness appeared in his deep and dark eyes. "She's your fiancée. She has the right." It was only at this moment that she realized how wrong she was. She thought that as long as she was willing to turn back and work hard, Ache would forgive her. It turned out that it was just her wishful thinking. Since it was like this, why was there need to act for her? She couldn't give birth. So why would she stop others from giving birth? Your body hasn't recovered yet. Come back with me. Holding her cold hand, Chi was expressionless. She broke free from his grip. Her red lips curled slightly, but her smile was uglier than crying. Meng Yao is willing to give birth to a child for you. This is something worth being happy about. Not every woman is willing to pay such a price. Do you really think so? With both hands supporting her shoulders, Chi-Che's face was livid. His sharp eyes were like knives, slicing her heart inch by inch. Of course. If she doesn't give birth, do you think I will? He deliberately laughed out loud. He turned around and walked away step by step. He laughed crazily as he walked, but his face was already covered in tears. The sound of a heavy punch hitting the glass coffee table came from behind her. The clear sound of shattering could be heard, but she did not have the strength to turn back. Everything was like a wonderful drama. Everyone was playing their roles dutifully, and she was the most redundant person. Uncle Lin, cancel tomorrow's arrangements and press conference. What happened? I don't need it anymore. Uncle Lin, I'm so tired, so tired. The voice became lower and lower, and finally completely disappeared into the darkness. Sui sometimes thought, if I really can't sleep this time, won't I be less troubled? When she woke up from Uncle Lin's villa, the first thing she saw was the press conference that was playing on the television screen in front of her. Chi-Che and Fu Mingyao stood together on the red carpet. They were a perfect match. With just a few words, they shattered the scandal that had plagued her for the past few days. Big CEO Chi was only sending his classmate to the hospital out of kindness? Out of kindness, She almost laughed out loud. Just cry when you're sad, okay? The middle-aged man, standing in front of the bed, was calm and reserved. He looked at Su He and said with a hint of reluctance, Chi-Che actually doesn't love Fu Mingyao. So what? She looked at the drips hanging on the bedside in a daze and muttered to herself, they're the best match, and we're the worst match. You're just as stubborn as your mother. And Juanhao shook his head helplessly. Maybe, Uncle Lin, I'll entrust my mother to you in the future. Actually, she didn't intentionally say those cruel words to hurt you back then. She focused her gaze on Juanhao and said solemnly, you know where Qinggu is? Tell me, where is she? And Juanhao was so emotional that he looked like a young boy. You'll be able to see her soon. He nodded firmly. The determination in her heart was even firmer. She had to find Ififan as soon as possible. President, young Master Qi, has been waiting outside for a long time. The female assistant knocked on the door and came in to report. And Juanhao slapped his head and said with a sudden realization, it seems like my memory is getting worse and worse. How could I have forgotten about this? Do you want to see Chi-Che? Last night, he stayed here all night. No matter what I say, he won't leave. He couldn't help but smile. Why didn't she realize that Uncle Lin had such a cute side to him in the past? He was obviously the one who deliberately left Ache outside. And Juanhao was a little embarrassed by the smile. I'll let you see it. You know that I've never had the chance to tease young Master Qi before. How could I not be satisfied with this opportunity? Besides, who asked him to bully you? Let him leave. I don't want to see him for the time being. Ache, if you and Fu Mingyao really had a child, she would really become a mistress in name. She didn't want to be a mistress. The female assistant was stunned. She stood at the door hesitantly, not knowing how to explain it to the people outside. And Juanhao signaled with his eyes, and the female assistant hurriedly left. Outside the villa's main door, Chi-Che's expression was gloomy and motionless. His deep eyes were dark and menacing. Duju, inform my sister to send someone to seal Starlight Entertainment's headquarters for me. Lung Che's voice was filled with unconcealed anger. He had waited here for an entire night, and his patience had already been exhausted. If Juanhao dared to be insensible, don't blame him for being unscrupulous. No one could snatch He away from him. Yes. Duju hurriedly dialed the number, and the woman's languid voice came from the other end. Who offended my baby brother? It's like this. Duju tried his best to tell the whole story as briefly as possible, and a sharp scream immediately came from the other end. That's great. I'll do it right away. After hanging up the phone, Du Ju's head was full of black lines. Were they blood-related siblings? They were too anxious for the world to fall into chaos. I'm sorry, young Master Chi. Miss Sue doesn't want to see you. The female assistant apologized with a troubled face. Give this to her. She will see me. Chi-Che handed the phone to the female assistant with a calm expression. Yes. The female assistant didn't dare to offend the demon in front of her. She hurriedly handed the phone to Soo-hee. In the clear video, a woman in a handsome camouflage uniform was in full bloom. The pistol on her slender waist was jet black and shiny. Her aura was as strong as a queen's, and she stood proudly. Behind her, a row of armed police surrounded the magnificent entrance. And Juanhao, you've got guts. The woman played with a Swiss Army knife in her hand and kicked the solid wooden chair in front of her. This is what you'll get if you don't let her go. She kicked hard, and the solid wooden chair broke. And Juanhao's face immediately turned green. He had been in the company for so long, but no one dared to threaten him so arrogantly. It was a great humiliation to be blocked by someone at the company's door today. In his anger, he wanted to make a phone call, but was held down by Soo-hee. Staring at the phone screen without blinking, Soo-hee looked defeated. She is Ah-Che's sister, Chi-Ching, the youngest successor of the Chi family in the capital city. No one can stop her from doing what she wants to do. Ah-Che never liked to use the name of the Chi family. This time, he actually made Chi-Ching personally appear. She definitely wouldn't give up until she achieved her goal. It seemed that it was impossible for her not to see him. Chi-Ching. And Juanhao suddenly realized. He had once met her at a private party of a powerful person. At that time, she was wearing an expensive evening gown. There was too much of a difference between her image today, and he actually didn't recognize her. If it was Chi-Ching, there was really nothing she wouldn't dare to do. Chi-Che was too despicable. On the cobblestone winding path in front of the villa, Soo-hee stood in a daze, staring at Chi-Che, who was 10 meters away. The withered yellow phoenix tree leaves fell on her delicate shoulders. A gust of autumn wind blew, and her long hair fluttered in the wind. It gave Chi-Che an unreal feeling, as if she would disappear at any moment. All of his anger and unhappiness instantly vanished. He strode forward and held her tightly in his arms. His slightly cold breath brushed against her delicate skin, bringing with it a tingling sensation. I hate it the most when people threaten me, she muttered as she rubbed her nose. She couldn't put on a straight face when it came to Ah-Che, so she couldn't refuse him. If I had known that threats were useful, I would have done this 5 years ago. His low and mellow voice was filled with a thick, lingering feeling. Come back with me. Chi-Che released his grip on her. His deep eyes stared straight into her eyes as he forcefully and domineeringly said, I will never allow you to come and go as you please, unless I die. He was stunned, and his voice couldn't help but tremble. Ah-Che, do you really hate me that much? His tall and straight body staggered, and his handsome face was deathly pale. He had been standing guard here for the entire night. After attending the press conference early in the morning, he rushed over without stopping. He did not even close his eyes. All of his thoughts had collapsed because of her one sentence. At this moment, he could no longer hold it in and could faint at any time. Chi-Che turned around in high spirits. His iron arms wrapped tightly around her slender waist. Even after he got into the car, he still did not say a word. His fan-like eyelashes were closed, covering his deep eyes. However, his hands were still clinging onto her tightly. The atmosphere on the way was so depressing that it was almost suffocating. After getting out of the car, he saw Aya waiting in front of the door. Soo-hee revealed a pale smile. After going around and around, she still came back. The sad thing was that the reason for her return was not love, but hate. After watching Chi-Che go upstairs to the study without saying a word, Duju finally dared to say carefully, Miss Sue, it's not that I'm criticizing you, but you really shouldn't have stopped the CEO's decision. The CEO did this all for you. You really hurt his heart this time. This is unfair to Fu Mengyao. What's unfair about it? Duju was so angry that he almost stomped his feet. If she dared to set up the president, she would have to pay the price. Fu Mengyao totally deserved it. Ah-Che gave her a chance. She didn't want to fight, but that didn't mean she was stupid. Even if it was just a design, she couldn't blame anyone. Aceh was such a smart person. If it wasn't for him being unprepared, who would be able to scheme against him, he trusted Fu Mangyao. That was enough. Du Ju was speechless. With the CEO's shrewdness, it was indeed hard to convince others that he was being schemed against. Madam, you look terrible. Are you sick? Do you want me to call the doctor for you? Aya, who was waiting at the side, asked worriedly. No need. I'll go upstairs and sleep for a while. He rejected her directly and returned to his room with weak footsteps. His condition had been really bad recently, and he was always sleepy. He really had to go to the hospital tomorrow. In the study, Chi sat silently on the boss's chair and didn't say a word. He allowed Tang Yi in the video to chatter nonstop and rub the space between his brows from time to time. I say, Aceh, are you stupid? I've been talking for a long time, but you have to say something? Chi-Che's lips curled into a sneer, which made Tang Yi's scalp tingle and made his heart skip a beat. Beyonder also has good intentions. He wants you to give up on he and stay away from her as soon as possible. Is that so? You think so too? He knew that everyone didn't like he and even he hated her superficial reality, but he just couldn't let it go. Me? Tang Yi pointed at himself and said after thinking seriously for a while, actually, he really isn't suitable for you. Your family won't agree either. If they really get together, it's simply wishful thinking. But I do like her. You know that I've always been a second-generation heir since I was young. My family has long given up on me. They might not say anything. The meaning behind his words was that he was the most suitable. Chi-Che's brows were almost furrowed into a small mountain when he heard that. His tone was indifferent and carried an imperceptible probing tone. How do you know that I won't be like Su Guinning's aunt? No way. Tang Yi was so scared that he almost fell from his chair. Boss, please don't go crazy. It's not like you don't know what happened to Su Guinning's aunt. She was once the most dazzling daughter of heaven, but she eloped for a worthless man. Now, her life is unknown. Even so, she still can't get the family's forgiveness and recognition. The Su family's matters back then had always been a taboo in the circle. Due to the Su family's power, no one dared to mention it. However, in private, it had always been used as a negative example by the various families. Chi-Che placed his hand on his forehead and closed his eyes in pain. They had once agreed to elope together. No one knew how reckless he was back then. He had long forgotten, right? Only he foolishly stayed where he was, watching his beloved woman eloping with another man in the end. Thinking of this, he clenched his fists tightly. His knuckles were pale and without any color. The uncontrollable pain and anger in his heart almost drowned out all his rationality. This kind of feeling had been tormenting him for the past 5 years, almost driving him crazy. Tang Yi couldn't help but sigh and said worriedly, "Let go. Aceh, just let go. You can't forget he's betrayal to you. This will only torture each other. Besides, none of us want to see your depression relapse. Otherwise, your old man will definitely intervene. When the time comes, things won't be as simple as they are now. You don't have to worry." Chi-Che's expression suddenly changed at the mention of this. "You can say whatever you want. If you want me to let go, you'll have to kill me." After saying that, he didn't care how unsightly Tang Yi's expression was and directly hung up the video. He would definitely not foolishly let go of Su He. He would rather be like Fu Jianxing. Even if he couldn't get her, he would imprison her for life. The first update was presented, and there would be another update later. It would be later, so everyone could watch it tomorrow morning. Remember to collect recommendations. In Villa number 70 by the Sunset Lake, Long Chinga was sitting elegantly on a luxurious Baroque sofa. She was unconsciously fiddling with a stack of photos in her hands, and the coldness in her eyes was as sharp as needles. Your first daughter is really good. She can even plot against He. Do you really think that I, Long Chinga, am made of mud? Standing in front of her, Fu Jianxing's face tensed up. He angrily grabbed the photos and threw them on the ground. Don't let me see you looking at me like that in the future, or else Su He will pay an even greater price. Long Chinga's red lips curled slightly. Facing his monstrous anger, She remained unmoved like a mountain. She even brushed her waterfall-like long hair and said flirtatiously, "Fu Jianxing, you will regret it. I will definitely pay back 100 times the pain that you have inflicted on me." The man's fierce eyes emitted a dark, murderous light. His tall body stepped forward and fiercely pushed Lung Chinga against the sofa. He enunciated each word clearly. "It has been 20 years. Are we really going to die before we stop? Let me go." Lung Chinga turned her head weakly, her voice ethereal. "Fu Jianxing, when you and when Ling gave birth to Fu Mengyao, it was already impossible for us to be together. We would definitely become strangers in this life." He was so pitiful. She had to pay the debt of the previous generation. "Rest unless I die." Lung Chinga suddenly flew into a rage. She was in a state of madness, filled with endless hatred. If you don't die, then I die. If he died, what was the point of her living the so-called revenge and so-called pride? In the end, we're all for naught. She, Lung Chinga, had been proud all her life, but she had harmed her own daughter. In the past 20 years, she had not fulfilled her responsibility as a mother for a single day. The only thing that had brought her was a serious heart attack and the identity of an illegitimate daughter that could not be seen in the light. During this period of time, I have thought a lot. I do hate you, but I hate myself even more. Why didn't I know how to let go back then? Lung Chinga looked outside listlessly and muttered to herself, "If I had been able to turn around and leave freely back then, perhaps the tragedy now would not have happened." Fu Jianxing suddenly let go and looked at her in shock. In the past 20 years, Chinga had never had such a look in her eyes. It was pale and empty, as if she would die at any moment. He staggered as if he was scalded. The word die shocked him so much that his heart felt like it was being twisted by a knife. He pressed down on his chest and knelt on one knee in pain. "Mr. Fu." The old butler who had been guarding outside was so shocked that his face turned pale. As he gave him the medicine, he did not forget to scold Lung Chinga. "You know that Mr. Fu's heart is not good. You have gone too far. He deserves it. If it was not for him, he would also—" In the corridor of the first hospital, Suhi received countless finger-pointing and scolding along the way. His expression was calm and undistracted. She would never take gossip to heart. The ones who could really hurt people were the ones she cared about the most. Aya followed behind, but was indignant all the way. "Madam, do you want me to teach them a good lesson after they scold you like that?" Sui swept a cold glance at her. "If you don't want to hear it, you can go back on your own. Also, don't call me madam anymore." She did not want to be too fierce to Aya. It was really too infuriating for Chi-Che to send her to look at her. "Oh." Aya nodded her head aggrievedly, as she didn't forget to turn around and glare fiercely at the people who were whispering. She came all the way to Hefifin's conference room, but was blocked outside by the administrative secretary's unyielding attitude. Helpless, she could only ask Dr. Jiang for help. Perhaps with Dr. Jiang's appearance, Hefifin would at least give her some face. Doctor, he doesn't want to see you. Why don't he go back first?" Dr. Jiang walked out of the conference room with a troubled expression. "I must see him today." She heard that the medical team was going to Beijing in 3 days. No matter what, she had to seize this opportunity. The first part was given to her. The ladies moved their little hands, and